who's the first person that has to be contacted in a P1?
If you ask about our operating model, we work very closely with our customers. We have designated roles assigned to every customer. So we have a incident responder is what we call. These are really senior level 3 analysts who know security in and out. And we have another role which is known as a cybersecurity consultant. Now this person, this individual is responsible to bridge the gap between our operations and our clients. So be it P1, P2, first thing they need to do, or our team does, ideally, because we are on the defense side, we are the ones who pick up the phone and call, not the other way around. But if it happens the other way around, they can pick up the phone and call our hotline, which is running 24/7.
We could see
There's a guarantee that a human will answer the call. It's not going to be IVR, nothing, because that's important. When our clients panic or when our clients need help, they need help from individuals. They need help from humans. So,
and that's 100% availability here.
So the answer to your question is P1s, P2s, SecurityHQ is the first, and not just security. Any company which is providing defense services should be the one who's proactively reaching out. So our analysts do that. So handling P1s and P2s is business as usual for us. Even today, as we speak, we're constantly. I know my IR team, which sits just outside. There's a bay outside.
Yes.
The incident response team. They're constantly handling incidents, and sometimes these incidents also go on for 24 hours, 36 hours, 72 hours as well. And there's a proper handover. We have different roles, different SMEs coming into the play depending on what the customer really needs, where they need help. You look around, right?
Yeah.
These are calm analysts, but they are doing some fabulous work.
That,
no one's panicked. You go and speak to my incident responders or anyone, right? No one is in a panic mode because they know they are in control of this, and that's how it should be.
So Sanket, most companies are flooded with alerts. And we've seen that why does so much of visibility still create less awareness? Like, what's your take on this?
So our advice to all our customers is that there are certain guidelines, certain frameworks like NCSC which need to be followed, which they've done a lot of research. MITRE mapping is there. All of us are aware of all of this, but it's very important to implement it. So when we start our journey with our clients, which is at the onboarding side of it or the integration side of it, we're very clear on the strategy of what are those must-haves and what can be put on a wish list side of it. When it comes to the coverage, it's important that we have complete coverage, and that's absolutely essential. You can have a lot of alerts, but initially, the initial 1 month is all about baselining. Because you need to understand what is important, what is not important, what can be parked, and that everything has implications, right? There will be implications on the alert fatigue side of it. There will be implications on the cost side of it. There will be implications even on the quality side of it.
Right.
So you have to act smart. You have to use your experience, and we believe that you don't need to onboard everything to have complete visibility. At the same time, you need to make sure that you have the right set of controls which need to be monitored. And when you talk about defense, it's all about the time to respond, right? And that's what the SecurityHQ is known for as well, right? So it's just inevitable. You have to get the right information so that you can provide the right solution.
Sure. And that really helps, because actually it should serve the purpose of response as well as saving.
It's all about having razor sharp focus on what is it that can lead to an incident, that can lead to a breach, and only focus on that.
Also, I think very commonly asked or maybe even seen that where do you see founders misunderstanding the security awareness?
When I speak to the founders or the CXOs, and specifically around the hygiene side of it, cybersecurity hygiene side of it, or awareness side of it, I clearly see that obviously there's a lot of discipline on all the other parameters, right? When it comes to running the business. And when it comes to the security awareness as well, they have few things in place, but it has to be followed, right? And when we talk about security awareness, it's not just about them, but it's about the whole company. Because humans, we've seen, have been a lot of times the weakest link as well. So awareness is crucial, be it on the email side of it. You talk about phishing. Phishing started a long time ago. We've seen phishing incidents happening since, I would say, at least a decade. But still, even today, they work, and they will continue to work, because obviously,
Because I think the phishing level of phishing mails or the incidences, they have upgraded. They're so real.
every single moment, the adversaries are
Yes.
getting smarter. They're doing more homework than what others are doing, right?
Truly.
So they're trying to get smarter. But again, the most easiest way to touch people who might be vulnerable is via emails, via mass communication, right?
Yeah.
So my advice is very clear that you need to have this as a program
Yeah.
place to make sure that all of us understand what is it that we need to do to safeguard our company and ourselves. You have to have that presence of mind to be self-aware, right? As again the chief people officer, that's one important module as well, because we have to be the best when it comes to security. So that means every analyst who we have here, he or she has to know their subject in and out.
And probably you'll train them.
Yes, we have an academy.
Yeah.
And that academy, it's all about culture, right? It's all about how we operate, how we speak to our clients, how we bring in us. It's a discipline. It's what we believe, and we have a very strong value system on that front.
Sure. So that was a great insight, Sanket. So Sanket, these days after the advent of AI, right? In a live breach, what AI can do, where does it absolutely fail? Probably you might have come across something that you would like to share with us.
When it comes to any breach, any incident, as humans or as a company, I'll talk on behalf of my company. We're very, very clear. We embrace the best technology, be it with AI, without AI, with automation, with analytics, all of it. We've embraced AI, and the difference it brings in is that it does a lot of stuff.
Probably accelerates your
More than accelerates, right? It's trained. It's trained. It's the most important, and things will happen, right? Adversaries will get it. The key is to get them out, push them out. And how do we do that? Is we use the best analysts and we use the best technology. And AI has become a very, very fundamental, foundational module of
the current working.
Where we are seeing it as we are trying to apply it in our operations, where we are really seeing them, it's making a difference, is at the level 1 side of it, where a lot of data, which earlier they used to rely either on just basic level automation, or they had to go and fetch it. AI is getting it for them. It's contextualizing it for them.
Everything,
right?
Yeah.
And that helps us a lot. It's saving a lot of time. Now our level 1 analysts are able to do much more. They are able to do the investigation side of it, and at the end, an incident is handled, or a major incident is handled between two individuals, between our customers and our teams, which means it needs two humans to be talking to each other, taking decisions, sorting it out. So it's not a replacement, it's an enabler.